Everybody, Martyn the Flicking Feathers again today. I'm tying this wee flea and crab variation. Very effective fly. It's a good fly to have on flats where there's a range of different species going to turn up, whether that's triggers, bonefish, permit, tuskies, other species like anything that eats a crab. It's a nice wee fly to have on. As always, I'll put a materials list in the description, along with a link to the Patreon page for anybody that wants to support the channel, get access to the members only content, the monthly fly tying meetings, and enter the giveaways. You can also subscribe, hit the bell button so you get notified of the new videos. That's all appreciated. So I've got my hook and my vise. This is a size 8 Gamakatsu SL11 3H. It's a good hook for this. It's fairly long in the shank and it's nice and strong. I like a longer shank hook, so that I wouldn't recommend using like an SL12 for this fly. I'm going to add here, I'm adding some mini lead dumbbells and I'm keeping them quite close to the hook eye. Obviously you will adjust the weight to suit where you're fishing, but this fly you can tie it quite light and it will still ride hook point up. You can get into a medium bead chain, certainly in this size, maybe up to a size 6. Oh, bead chain will still flip the hook. And obviously you can go heavier if you wish to suit the depth of the water. So I've got them on and I've sort of consolidated them in, they're nice and square, and I'm going to take a runner thread right down the shank, nice tight wraps, I mean you can see I'm moving the hook in my vise there slightly with the pressure that I'm putting on. These wraps are tight. And then I'm going to take another set of figure eights and then locking wraps on these eyes, and that really locks them in. There's no need for glue. For the, I suppose it's the tail of the fly, but it's the legs, I'm going to get some of these Centipede legs, but you can use a different type of leg if you want. You can use silly legs or whatever, but these are a bit more durable. And this is a good colour for where I'm taking this fly. This fly's for me, it's not for anybody else. I'm taking this down to Okinawa. It's sort of tan, barred with that reddish brown. I'm going to take the legs and I'm going to pinch them right in behind the dumbbell eye. I've got 3 here, giving me 6 legs overall, and I'm just going to take a wrap, and you can see I'm pulling my thread towards the eye of the hook, getting the legs really snug in behind the dumbbell eye, and I'm going to take 2 or 3 wraps in front. I'll take another couple. The reason I do that in this way is that I can now pull these legs and the tie-in point doesn't move, right? It's nice and tight. I'm going to, also when I wrap, I'm going to angle the legs towards myself, so I've turned this so you can see the angle, right? And this will just allow the thread torque to wrap these into the position that I want. And I'm keeping a lot of pressure. I mean, I don't know if you noticed there, my vise was moving. A lot of pressure on these legs. Keep the turns flat and keep them touching so that you don't get any bumps of rubber. If a bump of rubber comes up between thread wraps, you'll never flatten it. And just keep going. I'm I'm going to come round the bend slightly so that the legs will sort of angle up on the finished fly when it's fishing, because obviously it'll be fishing hook point up. Now I'm going to take a sort of speckled hen hackle, and this is dyed like a fluorescent fire orange. Now, because it's the dark speckled hackle, that the fluorescent fire orange is not that bright, but it still gives you a wee hot spot without being too overpowering, which I like. But again, you can adjust the colour. You can leave the hackle out, you could just make it tan, you could use pink, orange, just bright orange, whatever you fancy. Tying this hackle in by the tip. Just got to tidy everything up, just wrap all the way over that, I'm not trimming it away. And then I'm going to fold the hackle back as I wind it. Between the turns, just sweep it back. I'm going to use all of the usable fibres. I'm not counting the turns, it's just all of the hackle. When I get that used up, I'll tie it off. Fold that stem back. Get it locked right in. Break it away. And then the last thing, I'm just going to take a couple of turns over that last turn of the hackle, and I'm going to really tighten it up. That'll make it flare a wee bit. That really tight wrap, because I'm tightening it against its stem. Just make sure that's nicely covered, that wee bump of thread there. And just where I've tied that and folded it, I've created a slight hump. I don't know how well you can see it in the camera, but it's just slightly thicker, and it's 2.5–3 mil from the hackle, and that's where I'm going to start tying the body. Right, I'm going to leave that wee space. And I'm ready to tie in my body now, so I've got some sparkle yarn here, and I'm using tan and brown. Now for this size, I mean, it will depend on which brand of sparkle yarn you've got. For whatever reason, my brown stuff is a wee bit thinner than my tan stuff, but it takes me 5 bunches to get along this hook. So I'm just going to come in, get a wrap, get that hard against that bump. 3 wraps one way, 3 the other. Put it back. Couple of wraps just to sort of lock those figure 8s in, and that's all you need. I'm going to repeat that with my brown. And I'm not packing these in, right? Like I'm leaving a reasonable. There's a mil at least between the actual tying points, although the yarn's sort of flaring and connecting. You don't need to batter in loads and loads of yarn here. Generally, if you're going to be fishing these flies, I would say relatively lightly weighted, and all you want's the shape, right? If you make it really dense, you're really got to slow the sink rate. You want the fly still to find the bottom, you don't want it wafting around. So, I mean, on this size of hook you could easily put 7 or 8 bunches of yarn in, starting right at the back. But that would be too much for these wee light eyes. You're looking for I like to think of this as a crab for like soft presentation in shallow water. You know, if I need something heavy, I'll probably go to a different pattern. So, enough that I've got a form, basically. That's me, I'm on my last one, and behind these dumbbells. You can still kind of manhandle it a wee bit at this point. And the same, just lock that in with a few turns of thread. And just take another figure 8 through the eyes. Now, trimming the crab is up to yourself really what shape you like. But I would suggest I want it narrower near the hook eye and wider at the back. Again, if you think this is relatively shallow water crab, it's a fleeing crab, you're going to strip it and it'll kind of come up, but what you then want it to do is sink at an angle. So with the narrow front, the wider back helps it do that, along with the drag of the legs, like a crab swimming to the bottom. So think about that when you're making your shape, basically. I'm going to come in, I'm just pinching the fibres up. I'm going to take my first cut down towards the dumbbell eyes. And I always sort of aim for it to be a wee bit bigger than my final shape, just for my own security. I'm going to take another angled cut at a steeper angle this time, at the back there, and then I can see what I want. And I mean, it is easy to trim this off of the vise, but so you can see. Still too big. Better. And then you can sort of even up where you need to. And when you're happy, you can leave it. And then for my weed guard, I'm just going to get some hard nylon. I'm going to use a double strand of 16 pound. So I've got a loop. I've got 1.5 inches here, something like 2 inches. I'm going to fold it into a loop. And I'm going to pinch the looped end. Take 3 wraps of thread over it, and I've got this a strand of nylon on either side of the hook. Then I'm going to turn it the other way, 2 or 3, maybe 4 wraps, and then pull that in. This is sitting quite nicely, but I'm just going to lock it with a figure 8 through it. 3 one way, 3 the other, and then whip finish behind. And another. Trim away your thread. I'm using my old scissors here just to cut my weed guard. And then to finish the fly off, I'm going to varnish the belly and cut the legs. So legs I like to be basically sort of the overall length of the hook, or thereabouts. I'll make my first cut a bit long, have a wee look, shorten that just a shade. There we go, perfect. And then I'm going to take some very thin head cement. Right, I've thinned this stuff. It's quite runny and it'll absorb nicely into the belly. I mean, you could use UV resin. I know a lot of folk like to use that, but this is fine. That means I don't need to pick up my torch and all that. I can just set it aside after this. Just to seal that knot. If you want to, you could put some down the middle, but there's no need really. And there you go. A simple but very effective flea and crab pattern. It'll work anywhere, just change the colour. So I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up below and subscribe to the channel. Headlines, guys. Bye.